From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Welcome all of you, and good afternoon. On behalf of the Chief of our division, Dr. Mary Jane Deeb, and the rest of my colleagues in the division, I wish you the warmest of welcomes. It's wonderful to see such a large number of people here for the noontime lecture. I'm Chris Murphy. I'm the head of the Near East section here in the African Middle Eastern division. The division is made up of three sections: the African section, whose staff is responsible for the development of the collection of materials from and about sub-Saharan Africa; the Hebraic section, whose staff is responsible for developing the collection about Judaica worldwide and in Hebrew and Yiddish and other Hebrew script languages; and the Near East section, of which I am head, as I noted earlier. The Near East section is responsible for developing the collection from and about all of the Arab countries, Iran, Afghanistan, Central Asia, the Caucasus, Turkey, and Muslims in China, Russia, and the Balkans. Or, as I've often put it, our responsibilities run from Casablanca in the west to Kashgar in the east, and from Kazan in the north to Khartoum in the south. As I noted, the staff of this division is responsible for developing the collections from and about the various areas of the Middle East and Africa. And briefly, the Near East section holds about 500,000 items, of which 50% are in Arabic, about 80,000 each in Persian and Turkish, and then the remainder in some 36 other languages. The largest among those would be Armenian, which is now approaching 40,000 pieces. Part of what the staff does, beyond developing the collection, is to assist the readers, the researchers here, with access to the collections. And part of that assistance involves outreach. And what we are doing here today is outreach, as today's lecture, as a number of others, will make known aspects about materials not necessarily held in the collection, but about materials that are important to the collection in general. And if you have not seen the 1,000 Years of the Persian Book exhibit, I would suggest that you all go do it. And today's lecture, as a number of previous and a number of future lectures, are attached to that event, the exhibit. And we have been very fortunate to have as a partner the University of Maryland, and Dr. Fatima Keshvarez, who is the director of the Rashin Center for Persian Culture and Studies, and a well-known professor of Persian studies and a poet in her own right, will now ask her to come up and speak a little bit about the series, because Fatima Hanum has been really the person who found the money and made this speaker series possible. Fatima.
Thank you very much, Chris, and friends in the library, Dr. Deeb, Mary Jane, I should say, and where is Hirat? Oh, Hirat's here, okay. It's been truly a pleasure to work with these wonderful people at the library, both as watching them put together the exhibit, which in many ways is unique in the way that it covers material in Persian, which is not just located or connected with present-day Iran nationally, but with a much broader constellation of cultures that speak Persian. But also in the breadth of the topics and the breadth of the time that they cover. And I'm going to just say a couple of words on that. But before I say that, let me also say I am deeply grateful to Rashin Cultural Heritage Institute in Hawaii, and particularly to Dr. Elahi Mirjalali, who made a special gift for making this bi-weekly speaker series possible. So as a result of that, we have been able to, ever since the exhibit opened, to have bi-weekly speakers coming from all over the map, intellectually and geographically, to teach us about this phenomenon we know as the Persian book. How did it basically came together in different cultures, different aspects of it. And as I said, the exhibit, one of the things the exhibit does is that it comes to the present time. Usually when you think about Persian culture, Persian book, you think pre-modern, medieval. Whereas in fact, a lot is going on right now, both inside and outside Iran, related to the activity of the Persian book and book production. The presentation today is one of those examples. So I'm not going to introduce the speaker. My dear friend Hirad is going to do that, but I have been very impressed with the work of this very talented, award-winning, globe-trotting young artist, Rashin Kheiriyeh, who's done animation, book illustration. You'll see that. I'm not gonna say more about that. But when I invited her, I said, Rashin, I hope you can show people what you do to bring these books to life through your illustration and animation, and hopefully she'll do both. So with that, thank you all for coming out, and I'm going to pass the floor to Hirad to introduce Rashin to us. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I've been notified that we have a distinguished group of Iranian Persian Book Club from New York that have showed up here. Quite a long distance to come. The University of Maryland students for Persian, 30-plus students are here. Mazel tov, congratulations. I'm really glad you're here. And also thank you to everyone else for coming in the middle of the day. I know it's not easy to do that. I want to take a minute and introduce Rashin. Our introduction to Rashin happened a few years ago. I actually used to work at the Meridian International Center as a program assistant. And one of the first groups of Iranian artists that were brought over and whose works were shown were Rashin's. And I met her all those years ago, and it's an amazing thing to reunite with her in such an interesting way at the library. Rashin is an internationally recognized award-winning illustrator, animator, and painter who has illustrated 45 children's books in countries such as France, Italy, United States, Japan, Germany, Spain, South Korea, India, and of course, Iran. She has received 50 national and international awards for the books and animations, including recently being selected for the Honor List of IBBY 2014. She was also the winner of the New Horizon Award from the Bologna Book Fair in Italy, and the winner of the Golden Apple Award at the Biennial of Illustration Bratislava, BIBBY, Slovakia, and received the Comic Contest Best Character Designer Award. She has an MFA in graphics from Alzahra University in Iran, and has also attended the School of Visual Arts in New York. She currently works in New York with New York Times and North-South Books as a freelance visual artist. She hails from Iran, but also now calls Washington, D.C. her home. So very good to have you, Rashin. I'm not going to take too much more time. Again, thank you everyone for being here. We look forward to a wonderful program. Thank you.
Salam. Honoushmadin. Hi, everyone. I'm so honored and so excited to be here today with you and as a part of this amazing program. a 1,000 year of Persian book exhibition down the hall in the Library of Congress. It's a wonderful collection. It's really educational for me, and especially for the students of the Persian study from the Maryland University too. You can easily see how the Persian book design progressed during these 1,000 years in that exhibition. So I want to say thank you for coming here, and say a special thank to Dr. Keshavarz for inviting me, Mr. Murphy, Miss Mary Jane, and Mr. Hirad, and Naz, and so all of you. So I will start to give a brief introduction about what I'm doing. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm a 34-year-old Iranian illustrator and graphic designer. I came to this country, moved to this country 3 years ago. I had a great passion to be an illustrator since I can remember. I studied art in. Okay. Is that okay? You can hear me. Okay, I studied art in Iran. I went to Alzahra Art School in Tehran, where I fell in love with illustration field. And then I continued my education in graphic field at Alzahra University, and I got my master's degree from Alzahra University. I started my career as an illustrator for children's books since 2000. I started my job with working with different children's magazines first, and later I received children's books offers, book project offers from the publication houses, and then I got more involved with the publication area and the publication society. This is my studio in Tehran, where I worked, and this is me at work. I was working on a book project for Korea that day. I have to say that I was one of the. Perfect. Thank you. Well, I have to say that I was one of the very hardworking women in publication area and also in animation industry in Iran. I was travel a lot for taking part in different book festivals, and I exhibited my artworks in different illustration competitions, book fairs, and everywhere. So that's how the foreign publishers got familiar with my artworks, and then they connected with me. Today, I love to speak about the process of working on a book project. As an illustrator, you may receive offer from different publishers from all over the world. When I received a text or a story from Iranian publishers for doing a Persian book, it's not really hard for me because I know my culture very well. So I grew up in that culture. I do some researches for the classic stories. I look back, and then I will go to the ancient collection of Persian art to see what they did in the past, and then I just get some idea and feeling to create new things. But sometimes I received offers from different countries for different cultures. For example, this one was an African story. Um, I have to research about the other culture. So when I traveling that helps me a lot to know different cultures. But the other way, I usually ask the design team of my publication houses to give me more information, visual information about their own culture, about where their story came from, what culture is behind that. And so that's very interesting job. That was Indian story. Yeah, that's a classic Western story. So illustration is, I think, it's the best job ever, and I really love that. My mom was a painter herself, and she really was a big influence on me. She encouraged me to continue to follow my dreams and find my own way. Yeah, I wish he was here today. Well, when I want to start a book project, technically I read this story many times, and I live with this story for a couple of weeks. I try to think about it, dream about it, and create the images of the book in my mind and play with that to get the correct feeling. And then I will start to do sketches and drafts for this story. I do a lot of sketches for each story, maybe 60, 50, I don't know, for each book. And then I will select the best one for the picture books. This is the sketch for one of my books, which is published in Spain with If Cats Wore Boots, and this is the final image. So when you're done with the sketches, you try to set it up like exactly like your first sketches. And this is another one. When you do the sketches, you have to think about the place and the space for put the text. So, for example, I put this space free for put the text. Yeah, that's the final image. I love to draw funny characters. I love fiction stories in general. Fiction stories about animals, fairy tales, folk tales. These are my favorite type of genre of literature. And I draw funny characters for kids because I know they love this kind of characters. They also, I myself prefer to do the colorful images to cheer up the kids and make them happy. And when I do a book, usually needs a picture book, the standard one. Usually have 10 to 12 spreads, images, and then about 6 to 8 single pages. So you have to be creative to design each page, not to be very similar. You know, when I have a page like this, full color for the background, for the other one, I give more breathing space. Yeah, that's how you can put the text in weird places, like this one. That's a funny story. It's about a lady who swallowed a fly. It's a classic American story. This is my next project, actually. It's coming out in September. The North South is the publisher. Yeah, for layouting a book and putting the text, the Persian book has its unique style. When you look at the manuscript, the classic Persian artworks, you can see that they were really smart. I really admire the job. The illustrator designed and considered a special place for put the text. And then the calligraphers came and then wrote the text. They designed a box like this. So that's inspired me to do my layout. So I did some boxes like that in another book. Like this here. Another thing for designing a book, you have to be very careful not to put important images and right in the middle of the page, because it's gonna be bent and then your images will be in a blind spot. So this part should be free. For the cover, you have to think about the title, a place for the title, author, illustrator, barcodes in the back, and some little place for the middle for bending the books. And there are some measuring schedule that each book publisher have its own, and then they help you to do the right thing. Sometimes you can create a uniform for the cover. If it's a series books, you can create a uniform, and then the other book follow the first one, like this one. This is the two book covers for an American author, Megan Cyrus, if I spell it correctly. She has written 2 novels about Persia, Anahita's Woman Riddle and Night Letter. Last year she asked me to design for her book covers. I love this story too. Well, for calligraphy and layouting the book, I prefer to do my own handwriting. Because I think using the computer and fonts, it's kind of very formal, very clean and dry. It's not gonna be very matched with my drawings and illustrations. So I prefer to design my own calligraphy for my books. When you have a short story, when you have a short story, it's easy to hold the book by your hand. But when you have a long one, it's gonna be a nightmare. So for one of my books, this one, the Arang, which is published in Iran, it was actually a long story. It's hard to hold the book by my own hand. So I designed a font, my own font. I call it Rashin. So this is the classical Persian font. This is He, Vav, He. So you can see I turn it into funny characters. It's like a hat, like a bicycle wheel. So it's gonna be more matched with my drawings. You can see here. The dots, as you can see, it's like the eye of the character. So if I received the New Horizon Award from the Bologna Book Fair because of this book, the font and choosing the paper, the handmade paper, and the whole graphic design. For the technique of my books, it depends on the story you work on. I work with acrylic, oil, different classic style. But my personal technique is printmaking. I use linoleum to create my desired textures. So this green one. This is linoleum, and actually it's maybe you have heard about that. It's a plastic material. It's used for carpeting the floor, something. But the artists use it for the printmaking purposes. You can cut your shape out of this plastic material, out of the lino, and then you can carve it with these tools, and then color it. I use oil for this. And then you have a sort of stamps. Then you can press your shapes on the paper, and when you take it off, you have great texture. Some parts you have color, some parts not, and it's dirty. It's very artistic texture. I love that. I use also use collage. These parts are paper collage. For this book, this is story Jack and the Beanstalk. This is the scene that the wizard giving the magic beans to Jack. So for this scene, I wanted to have a magical scene atmosphere, like Lord of the Ring. So I used a liquid color for this one. I poured the color on the paper and I let it to dry, and then I used printmaking on top of that. And for another book, this one, دیگر در خانه پسرک 7 صندلی بود. There was 7 chairs at little boy's house. This book is written by Ahmad Reza Ahmadi, which is a great Iranian author. When he offered me to illustrate for his book, I read his story many times, and I got this feeling that it should be a 3-dimensional book. I need to have some shadow and distance and layers for this one. So I decided to use photography. I did some little paper models and then set them up in the scene. I made the scene, and then I put the light to have these beautiful shadows. Yeah, and that's a result. So I couldn't have this feeling by acrylic or printmaking or something else. So it depends on your story, your concept, and your idea, choosing different techniques. For example, for this book, The Golden Axe, that was a little wooden man who destroyed nature. He wants to build a house for himself, but technically he destroyed the nature, the trees. So I used a little piece of woods to design his clothes and the trees. These are the character of the animations I've done. It's called Sugarland, which is a popular animation right now in Iran. And the Iranian TV broadcast this animation, I think, for 2 years now. And it's very popular. I designed these characters based on Iranian story. So it should be very traditional drawings, but also funny. This is very funny. It has a lot of fun. For example, this grandma here, they came out as a puppet right now. Her name is Nana Qamar, grandma. And yeah, this is me at Germany, actually. I was invited there last year for having a workshop for kids in the school in Germany. And the guy who came to the airport to pick me up, he had these dolls, this puppet. He gave me to me, and he said, "Yeah, grandma came to welcome to you." Yeah, besides making picture books, I love to paint. Sometimes you like to paint your imagination, your fantasy, your own fantasy. You want to tell your own story. Because as an illustrator, you always offer a story from the authors or publishers. You have to follow this story. You are not very actually free. So I love to paint my own concepts. This is my solo show in Tehran, in Day Gallery, 4 years ago. And this is Day Gallery. And this is Wali Gallery in Tehran. And this one was a show in Montana, 2011. The title was To Be a Woman. Well, definitely it's a classic Persian painting. I really admire their artworks, the pure and the bright color they use, and the textures, the patterns they use, the how they draw figures and natures is really inspiring to me. So they have a big influence on my artworks. Honestly, I love the design, how they design the books. I love the outlets of men and women. This is my painting I've done last year. This is a large piece, and this is Capitol, where we are. And this is about a meeting of Persian angels. They try figuring out how to solve a problem. Maybe they want to fix this broken pigeon right here. So you can see how much the Persian painting style influenced on my artworks. I use the patterns of the ladies' dresses, how they design the trees. So I love that. This is another one. And this is the Persian calligraphy, which I love about. I used it a lot in my paintings and illustrations. I love the curves of the Persian calligraphy, the curves, how they repeated a letter. Very fascinating. This is my paintings. I use calligraphy. These are a lot of noon letter. So I call it a bowl of noon, bowl of bread, because a noon. Yeah, this is actually I've published a lot of books in different countries, but in the United States, when I moved here, it was really hard to get involved in the publication house in the US. I was expected to be very more easier than this, but it was very hard. It took me 3 years to publish my first book here with that long resume. but hopefully I introduced to a good publisher, North-South Books. I offered to them to publish a book about Persian culture because the Persian Illustrated from the beginning has rooted in literature, and we have a great literature in Iran, full of fantasy, full of adventures, full of fun for kids. So I love to. This is my goal actually, to work on this literature for the kids all over the world. They need to be retold, retell, and to be understandable and digestible for modern kids, for modern society. So what I did, my favorite poet is Rumi. Rumi is a great author, lived in 13th century. I love his poets because he always has a hidden meaning in their stories, in their poets. And the message of his story was interesting for me, about freedom and friendship. So I chose this story and I worked on it, I translated it, I changed it a little bit. I made the end of that as a happy ending. Yeah, that was an exciting experience. I wanted to show you that for example, look at the hat of the man. I use it for my character. The texture of the wall, I use it. You know, I didn't have actually these resources when I was working on the book. They came from my background. You know, when I grew up in Iran, I've seen a lot of these textures in the grandmother houses, in the movies, everywhere you can find these kind of things. But last night I found these images to show you that, yeah, I kind of similar to those artworks. Look at the windows, the colorful glasses. I use it here too. Yeah, this story is about a merchant who traveled a lot for his business. He received a parrot from a friend in India, and he loved the parrot very much, and he took a good care of the bird. He prepared everything for it. He put the parrot in the golden cage, but the parrot was still sad. When the merchant wants to travel to India again, the parrot asked him to deliver a message to the other parrots in India for him. So the message was this: tell my friend that I love to see them, but I can't because I live in a cage. So that was a weird message for the merchant, but he promised to deliver that. And at the very end of his trip in India, he went to a big garden and full of parrots, and find the parrot, the specific parrot, and then delivered the message of his parrot to him. As soon as he finished the sentence, the Indian parrot trembled and fell down dead. So the merchant was shocked, and he was very sad how to tell the sad news to his parrot. So when he back home, the parrot said, "So what happened?" And he explained, "Yeah, that was the whole story the parrot did." And at the same time, his parrot also trembled and fell down dead. So the merchant was really shocked, and he quickly opened the cage door, and suddenly the parrot flew away. And he escaped through an open window to the garden. And then they have a little conversation together. The merchant asked him, "Why you're acting like that?" And the parrot answered, "Because the Indian parrot taught me this trick. He showed me the only way to regain my freedom is to playing dead. You were a great master to me, but I don't want to spend my whole life in a cage." So the merchant was so nice and thought for a while and said, "Yeah, you're right, but you're welcome to live in my garden anytime." And a few days later, the parrot back with his friend, and then all of them lived together happily ever after. And yeah, that's the story. And that's me when I was telling the story for the kids in Politic and Prose bookstores. I had a parrot puppet that helps me a lot. Kids laugh all the time. I told you about the hidden meaning in the Rumi's stories. The story seems very simple, about the freedom, friendship, yeah. But Rumi has another idea. He's talking about death. He said, we are as human, do not perish after death. Readily, we regain our freedom from this cage we call body. So he's talking about the death and the value of the freedom as the most valuable right for each human. So I love his stories, and I will share it with kids everywhere. I hope they enjoy it. So, yeah, I also prepared some animation for you. And after that, you can ask any question. Okay. This animation I've done with cutout technique. Okay. It has English subtitle.
گفتم که آری من نمیفهمم چرا دکان این خیاط کلاهبردار همیشه پر از مشتریه. چرا این خیاط چیست که درباره‌اش سخن میگوید؟ او بهترین و ماهرترین خیاطی است که به اون رسیده، اما هیچ کس از دل خوشی ندارد. آخر چرا؟ برای اینکه از پارچه مشتری‌ها می‌دزدد. عجب، یعنی یک نفر هم نتوانست مچه او را بگیرد؟ نه، هیچ کس. ولی من مچه او را میگیرم، فردا پارچه‌ای نزد او میبرم و نمیگذارم حتی یک تار آن را هم بدزدد. جوانم، من به خودت مغرور نباش، این خیاط با هدف حرف دارد. صبر کن تا ببینی، من حتی حاضرم با شما شرط هم ببندم. اگر خیاط توانست از پارچه من بدزدد، اسب من مال شما، ولی اگر نتوانست، یکی از اسب‌های شما مال من. فردا خواهید دید. خیلی حواسم رو جمع کنم. این خیاط حتما آدم خطرناکی است. خوش داریم تو هستی. خب ارباب پارچه‌تو بده ببینم.
بفرمایید استاد.
به چه پارچه‌ای، چه جنسی، چه نقش و رنگی. خب چی میخوای برات بدوزم ارباب؟
لباسی میخواهم که از راحتی و زیبایی لنگه نداشته باشه.
به روی چشم ارباب، لباسی برات بدوزم که هر کس ببینه انگوش به دهان بره.
زنده باشی.
استاد پارچه‌تو اندازه کنم. پسرم آیا تا به حال حکایت باربر ساده رو شنیدی؟
نه.
روزی روزگاری باربر ساده یه بار شیشه رو برای قتل حمل می‌کرد.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well,
Rashin Jan, thank you very much for a wonderful, wonderful presentation. We'll take a few questions at this time. The only request is if you get up and ask a question, we're filming you, and you're giving us permission essentially to record you and then subsequently put you on our webcast. If you don't want to be filmed and put on a webcast, then it's your decision if you want to ask questions or not. Thank you, but feel free to ask a few questions. Go ahead. Anyone?
no question. Yeah.
I was wondering, I noticed that a lot of the books that you worked for were international books, and it seems like several of them were into English or Persian. What do you do when you get a book in a language that you don't know, or do you know all of the languages that you get?
Yeah, simply, I asked them to send me the English translation, and then to understand it, and then they publish in their own language, Spanish, Korean, everything. Yeah. Yes, please.
I think we have talked about this a little bit before, but I think it'd be interesting if you could say something about it. That cat in the animation, is that cat in other places too? Is this something you? I've heard about that.
Yeah, actually, I love cats, and yeah, I think that's me. I put this cat everywhere. It's not actually in my stories. That's my character that I added to my most of illustrations. Yeah, please.
I think it was absolutely lovely and delightful.
Thank
your
you.
Presentation, so thank you very much. Now, do you have favorite characters when you're doing it? Are there favorite images that come to your mind, or not? Or are they always different? Or how do they come about?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe my favorite ones. Maybe the fat, rounded shape of the characters of Persian guys with the blonde mustache. That's my favorite one.
And the women?
The women. I don't remember. I love draw the cats, animals. Those are my favorite characters. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Do you, for example,
Mhm.
in this one, did you combine the music with the text, with the art? Did you choose the music?
Mm. Actually, I directed this animation, but I worked with a team. I had a very great composer for make the music. He was a professional one, and I did the animation with another friend. So we worked together, and yeah, actually, this animation based on one of my books, The Cunning Tailor. This book is published in France in 2009. No, in 2006. And later it translated in Farsi and published in Iran too. And after that, it was a good seller book, and everyone encouraged me to do some animation about it. So I did the animation for my master degree for the thesis. Yeah, so I did that. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your future project.
Yes, my future project. There was an old lady who swallowed a fly, which is come in September. But after this, I'm going to work on 1001 Night stories. I think it should be the Simbad story. And also I have a story idea. I want to write something about my childhood, his memory. So the title is Caspian Beach. So let's see.
Have you thought of doing a series like this one, but another story? I mean, this one was the tailor. You said you're thinking of the 1001 Night.
Yeah.
Doing. Are you thinking of taking other stories and turning them into?
I love that. I had this idea when I was in Iran, and it was easy for me to gather a group to do these projects. But here I'm alone. I just trying to know more people and get involved in this animation industry. So I have to find my own group and then work. And yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, the series one. Yeah, I love that.
I also want to ask you, especially the students who are learning Persian, after the program, if you want to come up and take a look at some of these books, a lot of them are in Persian, feel free to come up. They really are delightful books. And your latest one is right there in the corner, right? The two parrots. So feel free to come up and take a look. If there's any more questions for Rashin, please feel free to get up and ask. One more question?
Yes, please. I couldn't hear you. Ah. About the sanction for finance?
Censorship, censure.
Sponsorship.
Censor.
Oh, okay. Sanction. Censorship. Yeah. Actually, this book, which is published in France, it has some female. So I had to cover their skin off their hands when I publish it again in Iran. So it's something like this. Yeah, you have to follow some rules there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, the family.
Where? Actually, you can find some of them in Amazon. This one is in Amazon, and yeah, you can find it. But I'm going to create a section in my website to sell my books, because everyone asks me and I don't know what to do. But you can find definitely this one on Amazon.
If you just give the address to your website, it's
Yes.
a great way to get to know your
Okay,
work.
RussianArt.com. Yeah.
RussianArt.com.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Very simple.
Okay. All right, everyone, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.